Welcome to ARTFLAKES. This is Mutiu Olawuyi, your regular host of the show. This time, we are going to be looking at the one very important part of East Africa, that is Zambia. Zambia is very important because of something I feel I'm not going to tell you now until we get to the other side of the show, where I will be meeting my regular guest, Umar, Osabo, who will be going deeply into the exploration of this country. Because this first part will be looking at the Zambia, the world of Zambia, the people of Zambia, that is the Zambians themselves. And thereafter, we'll be going into the exploration of their literary world. Don't go away, this is ARTFLAKES. Welcome back once again. There is ARTFLAKES, where we explore every aspect of creativity, and part of it is literature. So we decide to keep rolling out African literature, and for now we focus on East Africa. And with me here today, my regular guest, Umar, Osabo. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, welcome.
I hope we can explore the Zambian literature in detail today. I want us to practically focus on three different parts. We look at the country itself, the linguistic influence. The type of the literature, we look at the linguistic influence of the thing. Then we just touch about maybe the background of some of those popular writers in the country. So let's kick off with the first part.
Okay.
What can you say generally about Zambia?
Zambia is one beautiful country that I would like to talk about its literature, because the history of the people is quite aspiring, is quite motivating, is quite interesting to know.
Yeah.
The history of the Zambian is started in a period of where the land is occupied by the Kosan.
Okay.
Kosan people are those people that we come to know today in a modern history as the Bushmen.
Yeah, Bushmen, yeah.
So they've been there doing their thing. They live mostly a nomadic life.
Okay.
Building small huts.
Okay.
And because
hunters.
Hunters. They are into hunting for antelope, hunting antelopes and all that.
Okay.
Then in about 300 AD, the Bantus now came from North Africa. Okay. From the northern part of East Africa.
Of East Africa, okay.
So the Bantu originally, they are from West Africa.
Okay.
So you remember when we were discussing Tanzania literature,
yeah.
When they came, they introduced ironwork,
engineering skills,
and farming,
skills,
all that.
And farming,
So they did the same thing also to the Zambians.
Okay.
When they came, they were also hunters.
Okay.
It was when they came that they also introduced farming, the local farming system.
Okay. When you were talking about Tanzanian literature, I remember vividly, you made mention of the fact that the origin of human can be traced to Tanzania.
Yes.
So if that happened, then it means that when you talk about even connection between the West and the East, you talk about the first trip from the West.
Yeah.
The Bantus.
Yes.
Were to Tanzania. So they went there with their agricultural skills and the engineering skills, the traditional African engineering skills.
Yeah.
So I believe that from the trend of communication, if we look at this connection, we can say that before going to Zambia, they were first in Tanzania.
They were first in Tanzania.
Very good.
But originally, they were from West Africa.
West Africa.
They came, they settled in Tanzania.
Okay.
Then after a while, they spread to Tanzania. So when they got to Tanzania, they did the same thing. Okay. Introducing farming, tools, crops, and all that, and hunting. So when they have iron, they have iron. Because the Tanzania,
one they brought from
brought from Tanzania or West Africa.
Okay, from West Africa.
They also introduced the same to the Zambian people.
Okay, so when do we have the influence of the Arab?
Yes, in 7th century.
Okay.
The Arab started slave trading with the Tanzanian people, where a lot of with the Zambian people. I'm sorry, I'm missing the name.
Because you like the Tanzania more than the Zambia.
No, not that the name.
Or your interest in the history of Tanzania.
No, yes, actually, I have huge history in the history of Tanzania because I'm a black man.
Okay.
And it gladdens
my heart. You're not a black
man,
you're an African man. Because I see you can't compare your hair with your skin. So that is not blackness.
Okay, I'm an African man.
Wole Soyinka said in a telephone conversation, when he say, "Are you black?" he say, "Can you say my palm is black?" A black person, if you know color, you will not say someone is black. That is a stigma given to us by the
whites. Yeah, to show that we
are
not white too. They are not white.
They are not white. At the real whites,
yes,
no
they are not white. Yes, they are not white.
Unless you don't have blood in your body,
yes,
that's when you can call it.
It's maybe white. Spirit. Maybe it's spirit that are white.
Yeah,
I know. It's the Caucasians.
Exactly.
I think their original name is Caucasian. They were the one that moved on this planet.
Yeah. So you are an African.
I'm an African.
Very
so
good.
Being an African,
a proud African.
Being an African, I'm so proud to know that the history of man on planet Earth started in Africa and in Tanzania, in a place called
Odoba. So that's why you were carried away.
So I was always swayed by the name Tanzania.
So let's go back to Tanzania. You talk about the Arab slave. I want to know more about that.
Yes, the Zambia by 7th century. The Zambians were in slave trade with the Arab people for about 700 years or thereabout before the Portuguese came in. Precisely in 1700. That was when the Portuguese came in. But they did not last long. Then after the abolition of the slave trade, the British now came under the leadership of David Livingstone. It was his arrival in Zambia that led to a lot of discovering when he discovered a spring among Victoria Spring, Victoria Fall, among other things he discovered. It was his report that brought about more interest in the Zambian. Then shortly after, the immigrant from South Africa who were also Caucasian, color skin, they also came and started the British South African Company in the in the northern part of the Zambia.
We call the Rhodesia.
The Rhodesia, in the northern part of the Rhodesia.
That should be around 1923.
Yeah, around 1923, where they were exploiting mineral resources, among all that. Though the people were technically benefiting from the establishment of the British South African company in their country. BSA in their country. But after a while, the British government, who were the main colonial lord in that part of the country, they refused to renew the pact or the agreement between them and the British South African Company in Zambia. So that led to a kind of conflict between the indigenes of Zambia and the colonial masters.
That was 1962, right?
Yes, and the colonial masters, which led to election. It was that election that paved way for
African
the Zambia
majority.
Because the African were a majority, so it paved way for them to declare a self-government for themselves. I think it's one of the few African countries I know of that did a thing like that.
You know why that happened? It was 1962, and most African countries had already got their independence. They were tired of the delay.
Yes.
So, and they knew the law already, that the abolition of slavery was already declared all over the world.
And colonialism is gradually fading
away. So they knew that if those people failed to attend to them, automatically 2 years after they've had that, their neighbors have already started enjoying themselves without being controlled. So that spirit was there. And they knew that, the whites knew that, I mean the colonial masters They knew that it would not be possible for them to get into this in detail, continue to manipulate the country and the people. So exploit the people or explore the materials in the country for their own advantage.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they rebel diplomatically against them.
Yes, using their numerical strength.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that made them to get that independent.
Yes.
And that was, that's late. 1962 is, if you check African countries,
most African countries,
58, 59, 60. Around that time, majority of those countries, if you talk about either from the part that we have discussed about colonial nations around East Africa, you'll be mentioning 60, 59, like 60, that, etc. like that. So that is why I feel that they were able to have that guts. If it were to be the time colonialism was reigning, they would not have had that.
They wouldn't have had the guts to break.
Yeah,
so that was what brought David Kaunda as the first prime minister of the country.
Kenneth
Kaunda, sorry. And from there they move on to the present day.
So let's look at the Zambian literature now. What can you say generally about Zambian literature?
Zambian literature, like most African countries, is also orally documented. But there's an angle to their literature compared to most of the African or East African countries we discussed or we talked about in this program. There is a huge influence of the native language in their literature. For instance, Obuseko Mo Tebenda is one of the major literary work that even up to date in Zambia is still at the forefront. Because it was formerly like a folk tale or an oral narrative, but it was now reduced into a written document. And people in that part of the country are still writing in their native tongue.
Very good.
Unlike most of the East African country we discussed that are being influenced by the language introduced to them,
either in French,
Arabic
English language,
or English, Italian.
In the case of the southern Somalia, Mogadishu and some other parts, they use Italian to write at the same time. Even Arabic now, influencing most of those Muslim-dominated countries in the world. Let's now look at the general theme. What are in their write-up? What do you see as general theme of their write-ups? Most of these Zambian writers.
I think the thematic preoccupation in most of their literary works center on the challenges, slavery, colonialism, culture, and the strong willpower the people have for self.
That's political then.
Political. Yes, and the spirit they have, the love they have for themselves, the desire to be free, the desire to make decisions, govern themselves, and all that, are some of the things, or most of the things you find in their literary.
The neo-colonial one, or colonial one, or pre-colonial content of their
whether
write-up.
It is colonial, pre-colonial, or post-colonial text, you find this theme.
Because I was thinking, if we're looking at neo-colonial, more of economic may be the focus, but maybe their own might be an exception.
I think
that means that more political, politically minded.
Yes, because
if it is the colonial and the neo-colonial, they're still having those, the same theme.
No,
automatically
in a different perspective. You see, I see life, or as a literary person. Yesterday, your history, what you did yesterday, is or are what make your today, or will make your today, or that have made your today. And the things you are doing today will be what will make your tomorrow. So it is in this sequence that you see most of their work.
Okay.
Because I try to explore, which we'll be talking about in the second part of this show.
Yeah.
I try to explore their work. I see there's a lot of resemblance, or yes, same resemblance between the pre-colonial text, the colonial text, and even
post-colonial text,
post-colonial text or neo-colonial text.
Yeah.
In fact, the theme, they are not far from each other.
Okay.
They are so much related.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. There are some writers that are very popular. They're like Alexander Fuller, like Nanwali Semperi, you know. We have like Dorothy Gilmer, etc. like that. Some of them, you look at the Scramble for Africa. I see that as something that is direct, is easy to get, to guess. When you talk about Scramble for Africa, easily you can start thinking that the text may be how the colonial masters divided Africa among themselves, right? Because that's Scramble for Africa. That's one way I feel the title will look like. When we go into the exploration of the content, we can be looking at that. But some of these writers, I want us to look at the language they use. What are some of the linguistic influence that we can see in their literature?
Up to date, most of the work, the literary texts from Zambia were written in their native dialect.
Okay.
And on top of the list, from so many resources consulted or material consulted, the Bemba language.
Bemba.
Like Ubise Komo Tambeda is written in Bemba language.
Okay.
And among other prominent seminar texts of the Zambian people are written in Bemba language.
Okay.
But somehow along the line, as I was exploring the text before coming to the studio, in fact there is a move going on presently encouraging literary writers and critics to write more literary works in their native tongue, not just the Bemba language, as well as doing criticism in their dialect. So I think they are one of the very strong people. They are very determined people, the people of Zambia, compared to some of the African countries we've discussed in this program, because they are trying to narrow everything back home. I think the philosophy of the negritude philosophy is really working really working in Zambia compared to most of the African countries, not just in East Africa, but even in West Africa or South Africa that are being swayed by the colonial garment and abandoning their own culture behind.
Are you looking at it from language or from their appearance? Are they traditional to the core that they have their own appearance? Everywhere they go, they appear as African, or they are influenced only in terms of a language, but cognitively they're still having that Western culture attached to them?
I think if I may quote J.S. Mbiti, J.S. Mbiti said, language is the great carrier of culture. Language. Because 80% of what we call culture, of whether dressing, marriage, attitude, philosophy, and what have you, is embedded in the language. It is true. Language is a transmitter of the integral part of whatever culture of a people you are talking about. So in as much as they have the language, it does not matter much whether they wear shirts, they wear suit, or whatever clothes coming from the West. In as much as they have the language, they speak it, they write in it, they do a lot of exercises in the language, I think they still have their culture as a people.
That is a perspective of someone. I'm looking at it from the physical perspective is also very important. I know that is like the nucleus of other parts, just like a cell. You know, nucleus is the key part. When it is removed, every party will be affected. That means the soil will die. But when you look at other necessary ingredients to identify someone as a proud cultural ambassador, you are supposed to not only the language, show in your appearance that this is where you come from. If you look at some clothes, African clothes, you can easily know that this is a Ghanaian clothes because they have certain unique way of.
This is a Nigerian clothes.
This
Yoruba,
is a Nigerian clothes.
Hausa,
Igbo.
Yes,
like
I actually understand what.
It's not even before you talk. Instantly, people can recognize you. I feel that appearance too is also very, very important.
I'm not trying to say appearance is not important. Appearance is also very important. But I have not lived in Zambia.
Okay.
I only consulted the seminar papers, the leading literary works from Zambia.
So, and you feel that as far as language is concerned?
I feel as much as language is concerned, if they have the language, based on what I read on their in the text from Tanzania, I think they should also have the dress.
Do you also feel that that's one of the reasons why they are not connected with other part of Africa in the literary? Their literary works are not as connected as Kenyan literary work.
You see,
because now we are doing comparative analysis of what we've done so far.
I don't think so, because somewhere in the history of Zambian people, very little people, small amount or little, just let's say like 2% or 1 point something percent of the Zambian that were able to write. In fact, when literature is, when you talk about creative works, Zambia is still coming up compared to other African countries like Kenya, like even Somalia. They have great writers like what's his name?
You mean Hadarawi?
Hadarawi. They don't have people like Hadarawi in Zambia yet. They are just coming up. In fact, like Gilman, Dorothy Gilman, she's a 2000 writer. Like
21st century writers.
21st century writers like Fuller. And which other one? I think the oldest text that we'll be exploring is the tales written in the Bemba language, which is the Ibusikuma that I've talked about. So they are just coming up because the colonial masters, the grip of the colonial masters on the people and the exploits of the colonial masters, whether the South Africa or the British, or
the Arabs,
or the Arab, is so,
or the Portuguese,
is so strong that the people were not able to do anything. They could not do anything. They could not write. They could not do most of the thing compared to other African countries. So they are still coming up.
That's why we can't compare them to Kenya.
No.
In terms
they don't
of
have anybody like Ngugi. I'm very sure what I'm talking about. They don't have anything like Ngugi. They don't have anybody like Hadarawi or Achebe from Nigeria or Shoyinka. They don't have. They are just coming up, literally.
But when you talk about internationalism, because the world is going global, I understand culturalization is very important, contextualization is very important. If they want to gain the stage of the world, I believe they need to also strengthen the world language,
which is English.
No,
they are writing.
So what are they doing on that?
Like Dorothy Gilman, she won the Ken Prize 2014 or
recent one.
Recent one. Forgotten recent one. She
we'll discuss about that.
She writes in English, and she's still writing. Even Fuller is also writing in English. So they have upcoming promising writers
that are writing in English.
Yes.
To
so
project
they are on the yes,
their culture.
They are on the right path, projecting their culture in the world language.
But as they are trying to do that, they are also working on their local languages.
Yes,
too.
they are also writing on their local languages. Yes.
So that means that they are trying to balance the two.
Yes, they are balanced.
Ensure that the future generation
yes.
is not lost.
Is not lost. Yes.
Because if you look at some nations in Africa today, you will weep for the future.
Yes.
As the language is fading away, bit by bit. Some parents don't care. They just look at the fact that they believe that, well, for the fact that you can speak the language, automatically you'll be respected. Therefore, your child has to learn and communicate in English language instead of balancing the two. They don't know that it is possible to have the languages, particularly at the time they are growing up, balance the two together, so that they can be able to cope with the modern world and not lose their language. Because if you truly want to be a guru, particularly in literature, you need to have
background,
the local
background,
ingredient,
because the raw materials we use in literary writing are mostly tapped or gotten from our background, and that is your identity. For instance, as an African from any part of Africa, your story should tell, reading a paragraph or a chapter or a stanza or two stanzas or acts or an act or scenes from maybe a novel, poetry or a play should tell the reader where you are coming from. And this is what the negritude philosophy is all about,
which we are going to discuss in detail. Thank you so much for at least exploring the Zambia. Dear viewers, we will try as much as we can to give you the deep side of the literary world of Zambia. In this episode, we just focus on the general overview, and I'm sure you've gained a lot about Zambia. If you have not known about some of them before or their lifestyle, you've got to know them. But in the next episode, we will go deeper into the literary world. What are some of their work? We're going to look at the theme in detail. We're looking at specific aspects of their literary work. Are they poets? Are they more of poets in Zambia, or the playwrights or novelists? What kind of skills do they have in that country when it comes to the literary work? This is what we'll be doing in our next show. Meet you next time. Thank you for watching. This is ARTFLAKES.